and Susan J. Goldman, who will be in conversation with many of the artists featured in the exhibition Black and Blue, Prints in the Time of COVID at Baltimore's Gallery Myrtis. Myrtis Bedolla is the owner and founding director of Gallery Myrtis, an emerging blue chip gallery and art advisory specializing in 20th and 21st century American art, with a focus on work created by African-American artists. Bedolla has over 30 years of experience as a curator, gallerist, and art consultant. Established in 2006, the mission of the gallery is to establish the visual arts to raise awareness for artists who desire recognition for their contributions in artistically portraying our cultural, social, historical, and political landscapes, and to recognize art movements that have paved the way for freedom of artistic expression. Susan J. Goldman is an artist, master printmaker, curator, and filmmaker. She is founding director of Printmaking Legacy Project, PLP, a nonprofit dedicated to documentation and preservation of printmaking practice and history. In 2019, she curated PLP's first exhibition, Forward Pressed, 21st American Printmaking, a major national exhibition at the American University Katzen Center for the Arts. Goldman is also founding director of Lily Press, whose collaborations include the artists who are with us today. Goldman sustains a full-time, vibrant studio practice and exhibits her own work worldwide. Her work is also in the exhibition at Gallery Myrtis. So thank you for both for joining us today. Please take it away, Susan and Myrtis.
Well, thank you for that introduction, Beverly, and I want to thank the Washington Print Club for making this discussion possible. I also want to acknowledge Shelley Singer, who is Michael Gross's wife, and we hope that she will contribute on Michael's behalf. Susan and I have been working together for many years. It's such an honor and a privilege to represent her, and I thank her for curating this exhibition and bringing such beautiful, talented artists together. It's a very powerful show, and it really, I think, helps to elevate the mastery of printmaking, works on paper, and also photography.
Oh, let's see. Let me do speaker review. Oh, hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. I wanted to thank Myrtis. First of all, I want to thank Nancy, and I'm a little nervous. I know I wasn't before. Nancy and Beverly of the Print Club, and thank you, Print Club, for all of your wonderful support all these years. And I wanted to speak to Myrtis and thank her personally. We've known each other over 10 years. We sort of have had this relationship where we kind of started our journey into our businesses together in a really wonderful way. And Myrtis has always never let me go, and I've never let her go. And I'm really proud of all of the exciting things that have been happening with her. So thank you so much for always giving me a place to present prints. And thank you so much. Today I wanted to introduce the artist. We're going to give I prepared a PowerPoint, and each artist will speak to their work, and each artist has 5 minutes, and we'll stick to that so we can make room for questions so we don't run to overtime. But the idea of Black and Blue Prints in the Time of COVID, it kind of emerged as Myrtis had invited me to do a show in 2019, I believe, or 2020 in the spring. And I was like, no, I don't think I could do that. It felt like after the Forward Press show, there was a lot of exhaustion. And I was like, I don't think I have work, and I don't have work from the studio. And then she said, okay, let's do it 2021 spring. So what a blessing to have waited a year. But the idea emerged, Black and Blue came into my head because of my love for color, of course. And a lot of the things that we've been going through, it seemed like the perfect metaphor to title this show Black and Blue. And I'm going to turn it over to the artist and let them speak to their work. A lot of the work wasn't created with that in mind, but it sort of became an overall theme that emerged over the year. And so I want to thank all of the artists. There's new artists and returning artists. And I want to say something about the longevity of my relationships, along with Myrtis, Renee Stout and Preston Sampson. And a lot of these artists we've been together for years, and it's such an honor and pleasure to make prints with them and see them grow in their print work. And also some of the newer artists, Jun Lee and Jermaine Ashman, and I'm probably omitting somebody and I don't mean to, but it's been a great, Jonpaul Smith from Cincinnati. So, and also Keiko Hara, who I met at Pyramid many years ago, who came back and said, I want to come make prints with you. And we worked together in 2019. And so I'm going to load up the PowerPoint and we will begin. So I'm going to share my screen. Does everybody see that? And I'm going to do this. Oh no, not slideshow. Wait. Oh gosh, where are we? All right. Can you all see that okay?
Yes.
Okay, all right. All right, so here are the introductions, and I'm going to invite Jun Lee to please speak about her print. Welcome, Jun.
Hello, can you hear me, everyone? Okay, all right. So, I guess all right. So, hi, my name is Jun, and thank you, Susan, and for the opportunity that I could make the work at the Lily Press. Oh, so I'm a printmaker in Falls Church, Virginia. I'm also the artist in residence in printmaking at Lee Art Center in Arlington. I also teach printmaking part-time at Montgomery College in Silver Spring. Well, currently all Montgomery College classes have been virtual, so I haven't been back to campus since March 2020. But yeah, I mostly work in a large format woodcut, utilizing animals as a metaphor to convey competitions in our daily lives. Many prints that the imagery is a lot of animals, but then also people call me as a chicken lady because a lot of my prints are the roosters. Bridge Before the Leap, it was a 5-color reduction woodcut. I worked with Susan at Lily Press. We started in 2019 in fall. And printer was finished end of this, like, right before New Year's Eve 2020, and we editioned it and completed in January, and that was like right before the pandemic started. I cannot believe it. That's almost like over a year ago, but who knew that everything was just so much change at then. But the Bridge Before the Leap, it was a little different than my previous print because my previous work was more focusing on the competition itself as like losers or the winners and all that, the stress among with the competition, the fight that you have to do in life. But Bridge Before the Leap was more the emotion, the represent. I want to show saying about the emotion before re-entering or entering the competition, as when you're having hard time, like you work through, you fight it, and there is that break, that moment that you or need to regroup, and also being the doubting yourself, anticipation for the next, for your new challenge. And that was one of the big the step, because that I was more focusing on the fight before, but from the Bridge Before the Leap was more about waiting, and the focusing on the the feeling, like just like I'm talking, I'm very nervous. I haven't really had a public talk for a long time. But yeah, so that whole, also I do a lot of my woodcut is a reduction woodcut, is because I'm sure many people heard about, you guys are aware of a reduction is you only work in the one single block and you carve the block progressively as like you print each layer. And that also gives that there's not much room to making a correction, and you'll never know what you're going to get because you never can go back to the block making the correction. And I really always feel like the reduction woodcut was really fit with my artist's statement with my work, because it's like you can always have to push yourself, and there's always the nervous and the doubt, and you never know what you're going to end it up with. And so this was the woodcut is something, it's very soothing for me, and also it's meditating, and also very, it's like a hate and love, but it was one of the when Susan asked me to make a print in 2019, that was something that I would like, okay, I want to kind of break about the fight, and but I want to more about the after fight and then re-challenging yourself. So it really fits with it, it was not something that like a whole pandemic was it was not made in the 2020 during the pandemic, but that feel that I really represented how I felt that during the whole last year. And yeah, now we're 2021, and I'm actually looking forward to going to visit the gallery and see in person. So that's it.
Thank you, June. I'm going to make one comment and then we'll move on to the next artist, but this was the largest woodcut I think June had made. I invited her to go bigger, and it was also part of a series of these rooster images, and it's stunning. So I encourage you all to go and see it. And thank you, June, for working with me. Okay, next up is Jermaine Ashman. And I have two images of Jermaine that are in the show. Jermaine, where are you?
I'm here.
You're
Hi.
fine. Okay, 5 minutes. Okay. Continue, sir. Okay.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jermaine Ashman. I am a Howard U alumni, finished out in 2020. My specialty was 3D modeling and animation, also special effects and sculpture and fabrication, and digital photography and guerrilla cinematography. I have collaborated with known artists such as Susan Goldman and the late Michael B. Platt, who have actually been under his mentorship under 10 years in digital photography and printmaking. For these prints, these were taken during the time of COVID, and I've always had a keen sense of taking pictures wherever I go. This kind of enables adventure in photography. But for the process that I've done under this is pigment prints, and it's a process made from a digital file, and that can be directly towards an inkjet printer, such as the printer that you see that's behind Susan. So how I took these shots, I always put it out, for this one in particular, the end was done under a 10-second timer. And I just found myself in areas where areas that used to be popular, but since with the COVID times, it just became so empty and surreal. And where this area was in Montauk, New York. And I just had to be there and had to let the lens tell its story. Especially with, and I like to put myself in it at some point. So that's where you would see the silhouette figure of me in the water, being in this empty space. It's just, and the reason why I called the end is that's where the name took it from originally, from Montauk. They call it the end. It's a, given its Native American heritage background. So for what this process, when I took this image, I color corrected it in the best way possible. I always have a fascination with black and white photography, and so when I took this digital file, I kind of worked with the contrasts and everything. I finalized it in the fine art paper in the printing process. Now this one is called the 3:37 Pm Montauk. It was actually taken at the same day upon my time in Montauk. And I always had a thing for perspective. And so from when I took this shot, that's where I captured it on that same time frame, 3:37 p.m. And,
Okay.
yeah.
So Jermaine lives in Baltimore, just down the street from Myrtis, and this is his first time really exhibiting his work, right? In this format, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Very excited about that. And also, is there anything else you want to say? I don't mean to be rushing. I'm going to make sure everybody speaks, but can you speak a little bit about what you learned from Michael Platt briefly that influenced your use of digital printing, which is a new form that a lot of artists are working in?
Yes. So when I was under his mentorship, it was the classes when I was taken under was digital photography. And the majority of the time when I was at a studio, we always try to figure out ways to at least find new ways to take pictures. That was the consistency. Take pictures and try to develop a theme behind it, or at least try to tell a story. And the rest took care of itself when I started to assist him in his printing and framework, and was just trying to learn his process. And I wasn't the only one. It was many other students who were there. Like everyone was kind of welcome to work at their projects at his studio, and including mine. But I always, I really love the times where him and I were just talking about crazy ideas, how we take these shots. And it kind of grew on me a lot to know, like, I would love to take more pictures, and I wouldn't share those experiences with him when I did, and get his feedback from it.
Thank you, Jermaine. Okay, we'll come back with more questions. Okay, next up is Keiko Hara. Where are you? I have two of your pieces in the show. Is Keiko there? Hello? Are you all hearing me?
We can hear you, Susan, but I've asked, Keiko needs to unmute her. There she goes.
Hello?
Oh,
Hello, Keiko.
hi.
Okay, your 5 minutes, you're up. Hi, welcome from Walla Walla, Washington. Take it away, Keiko.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. This is Keiko Hara from Walla Walla, Washington. it is funny. Way back, I was looking for my teaching job. I was planning to move to Washington, D.C. And I just made a mistake. This Whitman College in Washington State asked me to come to teach. And it was kind of a mistake, but it was just a wonderful mistake. I love Washington State, especially in Walla Walla. And I taught and retired, now full-time artist. And also I continue to form a Mokhanga workshop every year. I conduct with my colleague in Walla Walla, Whitman College. But I do artwork, painting, printmaking, and art installation, and glass. And I just do anything I really would like to work on it for specific project. And after I had an exhibition at the Bellevue Art Museum with my new installation, combination of Mokhanga print panel and glass artwork, really gave me an amazing experience. So I decided, and I really kind of want to really expand more my imagery with more hybrid aspect of art. And I just kind of decided to work on print combined with monotype with a very colorful, strong color and blending color with Mokhanga blue color and black colors. And I remember the Susan monotype. I really kind of liked her works way back in the pyramid. And I decided to come to Washington, D.C. and to work with Susan and to try to really kind of see how I can really kind of expand my Mokhanga with oil-based monotype work. So this is the two piece I worked on this collaboration work. And so you can see very, the colors, oil-based color, beneath of Mokhanga is worked at the Lady Press with Susan, and using a transparent Gampi paper, I printed Mokhanga prints. So you can see the see-through and the casting, penetrating through the thin printed image. And that's something I really try to really kind of achieve hybrid, kind of a new spatial and dimensional work I was looking for. And I think it's kind of you know, I use the blue and black colors many times, and it is kind of you know, basically it's kind of people say the sad colors, and it's kind of a depression. But for me, blue, black, those colors are something really kind of like water, the wind, and the lights, which they don't have any shapes. but has amazing the new possibilities, unlimited potential to explore the universe. And just give me the kind of amazing energy to really explore on my work, especially when I concerned the kind of a political natural disaster in the world, to give me very strong impact. And I think my hybrid, new kind of opening to the spatial and dimension aspect really give me those kind of exploration.
Thank you, Keiko. I also would like to say that Keiko came in spring of 2019. I lose track of time. And then she took all this work back with her. She didn't finish it in the studio. So you were working on these pieces as constructions and collages. So I just want to put that out there, that it's very beautiful work, and you can see on this particular image that there's a piece of Gompy paper that's not glued down all the way, so there's this beautiful sense of construction in these works. And so thank you so much, Keiko.
Thank you, Susan. It was really great to work with you.
She's going to come back too, but
yeah, I love to.
we'll go on to the other work and come back for questions, but thank you. Okay. Next is Preston Sampson. Are you there, Preston?
All right, I'm unmuted now.
Okay.
Okay, so anyway, well, first of all, Susan and Myrtis, thank you so much for including me into this wonderful group of artists. I really, when I think about my story, you talk about history with Susan, we go back to 1998, Pyramid Atlantic monotypes of Duke Ellington. And I had no idea what I was doing. And as a painter, going into a printmaking studio is a little different. And she's annoyed with me all the time, because I'm kind of, spontaneous. My work is based on color, narrative, and immediacy, and with a real linear sense to it. So going in doing the monotypes with Susan is having to try to orient myself, to see things backwards, how printmakers do. And what you see on this plexiglass is always so different from what comes out, but that's also a very charming piece of it. Because what I've done here are monotypes. We start out with monotypes, and they kind of evolve and morph from one thing to the next. And as far as that, it's interesting with the blues, I think about in relationship to the theme of the show, I believe there was so much of us suffer from extreme isolation and just solitary existence over the last year. And so portraits, I love portraiture. I do that. That's probably one of my favorite things to do. And also the individual in this one, that's my son. He's one of the recurrent themes of my work. But I also think about the blues. Blues have to me such a metaphorical sense of, what it actually means. Most people think the blues, but I always think, in my statement I wrote, I think it's a hot color. It's white hot. Blue is hot color. It's not necessarily cold and lifeless, and I think it's hot. It burns with a lot of intensity. And when I talk about the lines, one of the things that I enjoy the most about working with Susan is the sense of collaboration and kind of moving you through one process to get your work to evolve and to see how you where it goes. But I always like the linear sense of these monotypes, how there is a sense of, from my painterly sense to translating my medium onto plexiglass. And I saw some of the etchings pop up for a second there, doing the etching work. But I particularly enjoy Yeah, because one of the things I'm a doodler. I like to draw. I've been sketching my entire life, these little doodle bug things. So sometimes they just come in. When we were doing the etchings, it was a chance to just play on that zinc plate, whichever one we were working on. And so it kind of led to my interest and fascination with lines and how they kind of run around the page and eventually do something. In a sense, it's somewhat sculptural. I always feel like with all of it, because it's kind of excavation. Susan and I start on one thing and it evolves and turns and churns. The next thing is something totally different than I was thinking about. And like there's a story, like one we were working on the last time. She said, Preston, you ought to get this blue out of her forehead. Hey, you remember that, so?
Yeah, I was going to say maybe, so we talk a little bit about the subjects of your figurative work, why you choose you have wonderful names for your work, and you can talk a little bit about that. And
there you go, keep me on point. Thanks. But anyway, so, like I say, I've always thought about spirits and, spirituality of, some of the stories that I'm telling in my artwork, period, has a lot to do with family history and legacy. And with the, the guardian is, for me, is like a symbol of always having that thing in the background, that spirit that's like looking over you. And I think for all of us during this period, it's very poignant that we all had to have somebody looking out for us, and it was forces unseen. We didn't know where we were going with it. And one of the things about the portraits that I enjoy is like the neck. They're always kind of elongated, and to me, the neck in my narrative, it's a sense of exposure and vulnerability, but also like by the same time, regalness and those like the Menine sculptures, they had the proud necks. But anyway, and they're off of my sons. My sons are my most, consistent, model base. And I was with them. They were both on with me the whole time. So it just watching them, how they responded to different things about what was going on, whether it was the news, everything else. So I don't know.
And then maybe one more comment on the etching characters, and then we'll move on. But you have personalities here: Smokey Joe, Velvet Hammer, Lucille.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and they all, the characters are, they kind of just evolve and they come on from, nowhere, whether it's, Lucille was always at Aunt Lucille. She was, as the line started happening, and that's what came to me. And the other one is another figure. It's a man pondering when the hell's going on, how pondering his fate and the future and everything else. So with the Smokey Joe. And also it's the Lions, and the Velvet Hammer, she's just kind of, got a little bit hybrid, but she's something else. So maybe based on my IB, who was a mess. But yeah, there's always a story behind these characters. But so anyway, that's what these people represent.
And so I just want to say one thing. These are some of your first etchings. Encouraged him to get into making etchings. So we're still continuing on with that. So, and I know there'll be more questions, but thank you, Preston.
Thank you.
Okay. Jonpaul Smith, where are you?
Hello.
Hello. Jonpaul's with us from Cincinnati, Ohio. Take it away, Jonpaul.
Yeah, so I guess like a little background on myself. I come from rural north central Indiana, and my parents owned liquor stores. So I think I've really gotten into corporate branding and selling products and what branding means to not only the person selling, but also the customer. And I've kind of been obsessed with that a long time in my life. So during COVID in 2020, there was kind of a large reckoning with some of these long-held icons, mascots for different corporations, and just kind of delving deeper in than just your news story of like the three everyone knows or might be familiar with, and just looking up the long tradition of it and where the stories and history of some of these characters came from. I just got, I don't know, a little overwhelmed by how ubiquitous they are across the country, not really even just in our United States. So I started building kind of digital collages with those. in relating back to my other work that's always woven and using found objects and different kinds of branding. I brought in other kind of colors and things and built these as digital collages that were then disassembled and rewoven back together. So my background in master's is in printmaking, and I used to always take a lot of found objects from the streets and try and bring in alternative method printmaking into printmaking. And you make successful prints, but also in that process, there's a lot of failure, a lot of marks on paper that are interesting marks, but not necessarily something you might put a frame around. So I started experimenting with deconstructing those prints, and really began making these like quilt-like tapestries. And I think as we all kind of look back where our lenses are on something, I think I was really influenced by growing up around the farming culture and the way the women used things within my family. My mom, I reused any scrap of anything you could find to create things. I mean, not only like our clothing, but I mean, she would find any flea store find and turn it into like something amazing. So I've always been interested in using, you know, every kind of scrap and stuff like that. So that's, I think, how I got into weaving my imagery together.
I want to set an apology here. There's more prints of his I have to show. I thought they were in the, I'll put them back up at the end. I apologize. They're large constructions and they should be in this PowerPoint, but technology is weird. But speak to these prints and we'll come back to you at the end. I'm so sorry. I don't know where they are, but they should be next. I'm afraid to touch the computer that I screw something up.
Oh, you're fine. And I'm so much better with a Q&A anyway. So, but I with both of these, they actually contain the same type of imagery. So I wanted to explore the weave pattern itself. One is your traditional warp and weft pattern. That'd be untold on the right. And then on the left, using undisclosed, I took the weft and used concentric circles and wove through straight pieces. So I was playing with just pattern there and experimenting that way. And I, you know, talking to the imagery that's used in it and the weave pattern itself, I think in a lot of ways, this imagery is out there in our society. And even though we think we're aware of the pushback on some of it, a lot of these corporations didn't necessarily change until there was this demand of reckoning in like 2020. So to me, sometimes it feels somewhat like a hollow gesture that they necessarily do when changing something. So I felt like the weave pattern and being able to hide kind of the imagery, it's there, but yet you have to actually really concentrate to see something come out. I enjoyed that aspect of it. It kind of allows a viewer in a sense to find their own narrative within a piece, not necessarily making that definitive statement at the beginning.
Right, so there, Jonpaul has 3 other pieces that I'm going to bring up that are beautiful, and one is 7-foot tall weaving. My apologies, but this was a project that we initiated through Lily Press to co-publish this edition of new prints dealing with these retired commercial emblems, right?
Mm-hmm. And what's interesting, right, is not all of them are retired. And I think through that research, that's also what I found interesting. There's just an incredibly long history that I have become more and more educated in through this process myself.
Okay. Thank you, Jonpaul. They might be in the next row. I'll bring you back on. I'm so sorry. Okay. Okay, next. Shelley Singer will be speaking for Michael Gross. Hello, Shelley. Are you there, Shelley? Okay. These are screen prints by Michael Gross that were printed at Lily Press in 2002. And Michael Gross is a wonderful painter and artist from the Washington, D.C. area who I had the opportunity to work with over a number of years. He was a great help and support to a lot of my projects. And Michael was an abstract painter dealing mostly with color and movement and line. And I suggested one day, let's make a series of black prints, blue prints, gray prints, red prints. And these are a series of screen prints that we explored that pushed his painting into new directions as well. And I wanted to, and Myrtis represents Michael now, and we both agreed it would be important to include Michael's beautiful work in the exhibit and his vision, which is gray vision, black vision, blue vision. They speak for themselves. And is Shelley there? Is she?
I'm here.
Okay, you want to say a few words and I'll.
I have a very few words to say. I'd say that the only constant in Michael's career as an artist has been change. And he goes in cycles from very, very frenetic, wildly colorful works of art to what he did here is an exploration of these monochromatic images, which without really good light on them can look kind of matte and not much going on, but they are illuminated by light. And not only does he have these three colors, but he's got, as Susan said, yellow, red, gray, green, wonderful, wonderful explorations of color. And after he did this, he went back into some more frenzied musical work. The thing that he always says is, I create the chaos and then I resolve it. And he's always somewhere in between creating it and then resolving it, then settling it, and then needing to start to work again. Thank you for including him in this wonderful exhibition, Myrtis and Susan.
Thank you. Jonpaul, there you are. Where are you, Jonpaul?
I'm back.
I knew okay, take it over. I didn't mean to rush, Shelley, go ahead.
So first I'd apologize for this being on a very yellow ochre wall. It's the largest wall I had. My studio walls aren't large enough for me to shoot my own work. But this is 7 feet in diameter. The black and white imagery, it's a silver metallic black and white photography. And then the blue is a 6-color silk screen. The title Black Eye, this is, I don't know, right? As an artist, it makes perfect sense to me. So like buckle in your seatbelt and hang in with me on this one. But I very much remember a conversation with my grandpa, Tom, about fighting in school and being picked on by boys and what it meant to get a black eye. And it was just this very, I don't know, I think we probably all have these conversations that just really like stick with you. I mean, I can travel back to what he was wearing, what the room smelled like. Anyways, he was a large train set aficionado, all the way down to the buildings had lights and cars moved, and that's where this conversation took place. So even though it's deconstructed, if you were up close in the blue imagery, it's actually a silk screen of a model train set with an older gentleman and a child standing next to it, looking down at the train set, all the little buildings and trains and stuff. So that's kind of where that comes from. And then the imagery of the photography is actually 2 different images, and it's just a rural country road. If you saw it uncut, it's just a asphalt road bending through 2 tree line, on either side. And that's pretty much what it looks like where I grew up, completely flat. Trees line the roads because right on either side of that is just cornfield or soybean field. And so it really reminded me of home. And I think during COVID, and I think we all feel a little beat up. I was thinking of this conversation. Also, I can't get anywhere near my family at the moment. I mean, things are changing now, but I couldn't visit my parents for like 8-9 months. I didn't see my siblings and all of that kind of stuff. So I think it kind of felt like a black eye. So when this idea came up, that's just kind of where I went with it for black and blue and thinking of this work. Yeah, and this is amazing what a professional shot photo does. The blues really pop a lot better, but it's the exact same materials. A lot of times when doing an enormous work, I'll kind of make smaller works as studies instead of just jumping right into what an overall pattern will look like. So this was just also kind of studying what the larger form was going to be in a smaller form work. But the title Kind of Blue, I had a college significant other that was a big Miles Davis fan. And I think for 2 years straight, that was what I woke up to every morning for classes. And it's just a go-to for me for a slow kind of I don't know, again, with 2020, I just felt like life was kind of a little slow and a little sad, but not like a happy sad. I don't know. So that's what I thought of when I was making that piece. And then centered really just speaking to the actual pattern itself, the blue being in the middle, and maybe finding yourself kind of wanting to recenter in this time is what I was thinking behind that. So there you go. There's my
Thank you.
quick.
Okay, sorry to, I don't mean to rush people on this.
Oh, no, you're fine.
Eve Stockton, where are you, Eve?
You see me?
There you are. Yes. Okay, take it away, Eve.
It is such a pleasure to be part of this stunning Black and Blue show. And I wanted to first thank the Washington Print Club for hosting this artist talk, and with so many terrific artists. Oh my goodness, learning a lot during this talk already. I wanted to thank Gallery Myrtis for mounting such a spectacular show. And huge thanks to Susan, who I've been printing with for 10 years now. She and I have been printing this imagery for the full 10 years, but Susan is obviously the curator for the show and a catalyst for so much that's creative in my life. A little background, after a background in working in architecture, I have been focused on nature-based large-scale woodcut prints like this size, the 3-foot by 3-foot module. I like to depict various aspects of nature, some more abstract than others, but I have a background doing woodland landscapes and clouds and networks and evolutionary landscapes, etc. But I think Susan very aptly chose this seascape diptych to be included in the show, not only for the color, but the imagery of the water. Obviously, with water, like this past year with COVID, haven't we all felt a bit of shifting and flux? And nature in general is, of course, beautiful, but also menacing. And haven't we also felt that with the COVID virus threatening us from all around? So a very good choice. A bit about the making of these big prints. So this is made with 2 carved blocks and 1 uncarved block for the blue background. And they're made with old style gouges like Rembrandt might have used. The blocks are typically 10 to 12 pounds each. So Susan and I, using our 4 hands, lay down the inked block onto the paper on the press bed, put the felt, run it through the press as many times as needed to build up the imagery. So this is all to say that between the carving and the printing, it's very labor intensive. And I thank Susan for that as well. There's nothing digital about my process, except in this case, this water imagery came from photographs from where I summer in Nova Scotia. Because my blocks are all 3-foot by 3-foot, I now have somewhere over 50 of them, and they're now getting combined in various creative combinations. But the square allows me to build the imagery in a modular way, not only from a diptych like this, but also bigger presentations. I've gone up to 6 panels at this point. I like to print my prints full field because I think that makes the viewer continue the imagery infinitely and hopefully also invite them in to the image that's depicted. Not my focus and love of nature comes honestly from a wonderful childhood growing up in rural Ohio, where I explored so many diverse landscapes. And in adult life, I continue to go out and walk in nature every day, but it's really my summers in Nova Scotia that have inspired this particular work and much of my other work. Now, since my work is nature-based, one could argue that it is not a direct comment on the human condition, but rather I'm hoping, it is my hope that my imagery is an invitation to look more deeply at nature and to better appreciate and preserve the natural world around us. And yeah, it's such a pleasure to be part of the mix and to have been working with Susan all these years.
Thank you, Eve. The feeling is mutual. Like fine wine, we get better and better. Okay.
Susan, can I interrupt? I forgot to mention, I can't see myself, but over my right shoulder is one of the blocks here. And then a different version of the seascape combined with a first block behind me.
Okay.
Just to show the variety and how we mix things up.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Okay, on to Miss Renee Stout. Are you there?
I'm here. I'm here.
Okay.
Hey. Well, I want to first thank Susan and Myrtis and the Washington Print Club for making this happen today. And I'll just say a little bit about my work. I'm a sculptor and a painter, but I also do other media. And I especially love working with paper. So doing prints with Susan, has allowed me to escape the painting and the sculpture to get into something that's more about drawing, which is my first love. As a child, that was my first way of expressing myself. And so one of the things that I've been thinking about, I'd say it started in 2015. So it was before the 2016 election. I was thinking about where we're headed as a country. And this particular piece we're looking at right now in the Parallel Universe, which was done in 2016, it was, I don't know exactly when Susan and I worked on this print, but this was before the 2016 election. I think it was it?
Yeah, I mean, we worked on it 2015 and I think we really finished it 2016.
Yeah. And so around that time, I realized, because I'm very perceptive, that our country was headed for some weird times. And so the Parallel Universe was a means for me to try to at least metaphorically escape and remind myself that while I'm in this, I don't have to be of it. I can transport myself, through my art, just through projection of just wanting to be someplace else. So this was one of the first pieces that I did that addressed the idea of being in a parallel universe and conversing with very powerful people who could, rise above this situation with me. So, there's the names of certain people in there like Nelson Mandela. I can go to the parallel universe and have a conversation with a person like that, right? And we can reflect on all that's going on. And I guess the little boat there is almost like a metaphor for being transported. So that's what this print was about. And I love grids. I'm finding out that I'm obsessed with the idea of grids, and I don't know what that is. When I think about it, sometimes I think it's about a symbol for order. So like there's a sense of an underlying order, and then the chaos is going on all on the top of it, but the underlying grid is a sense of order. So I would like to really talk about the next print, since that was, the most recent one. So once again, when you look at it, you see a grid of people. Well, these 9 hoodoo assassins, there's 9 on each one, and they're all different. This print was a result of actually, after the election, living through 4 years that culminated in the weird 2020. And so these were done in 2020, No, we started these when? When did we start them, Susan?
We started them, I don't remember, but
I don't either.
you-
All the time is running together. That's the whole point. And so, so the thing about it is, so I'm doing all this observing, as I always do, and looking at what was going on politically and socially. And what stood out to me is authority behaving badly. And this was my response to that. So in my parallel universe, I can escape to my parallel universe, but I have to ensure that it's protected and not contaminated by this one. So I started to build this army, and I was doing these portraits of these assassins who were the protectors and guardians of my parallel universe. And they were on sheets of paper that were 8 by 8 inches. And I'm having them framed because eventually I'm going to do a whole grid of these things. So when Susan invited me to do a print, it gave me the opportunity to create, this small army of assassins, in the form of etching, which is one of my favorite things. I just love etching, and I love working with Susan to do these etchings. So what I wanted to do was show you characters that are in my universe. And so some of them are based on real people. And actually, these are like all friends of mine, some of them high school friends, some of them, current artist friends. And some of them, a couple of, like in the first one, the sepia toned one, there are 2 figures that have strange faces. Well, they're based on African masks and a figure that I have around the house. And, they even become characters in my parallel universe. So if you see the print and you look at each of the individuals, underneath each individual, like these are spies, and they have sort of their spies and their agents, and they have special duties assigned to them. And they would need all these things to protect my parallel universe. So that's what this piece is about.
Well, we started these in 2020. We felt it was okay. And I gave you 2 small plates to test. And Renee came back with these drawings saying, let's do this. So the blue ink is actually, these weren't created for black and blue. They were just, I was like, oh my God, we have a blue print here. The writing was reversed to soft ground to, you wanted it to look like stain of ink was coming through like a high school yearbook page.
Well, like a page, like let's say whoever the general is, who's in charge of all these assassins, she's keeping notes and she knows who's doing what. So let's say she has this journal, because I'm all about journaling. I do it all the time. But let's say she's keeping her journal of all this information. And she's written notes on one side of a page that these images of these people are on. And over time, the ink has bled through. And that's what I want you to give the feeling of, a page where the ink is bled through from the other side. Like what happens in a journal sometimes when you're writing with a certain pen and it bleeds through the page a little, so that when you turn it on the next page and you start writing, you see it has, like little ink marks that have bled through on the other side. So I wanted to kind of replicate that. So this was a 2-plate print.
Right, the one on the right, yes. So anyway, so it's always a pleasure to work with all of you guys, but I learned from you too. But this wasn't intentionally printed on blue just for this show. It just
happened that way.
Existed in 2020 before, but okay. Well, thank you, Renee. I'm going to move on to, I'm going to speak about Victor's work and then my work quickly, and then we can open for questions. Victor couldn't join us, but I've worked with Victor Ekpup. This is our second print. We did one in 2017 called Hip Sista, and this is called Still I Rise. And the morning after the George Floyd incident, Victor sent me a note and said, I want to do this as a print. He sent a drawing of this image, and I think it really speaks for itself. In his very calligraphic work, this is what emerged, and I was thrilled to do it. But I remember when he wrote me, I said, oh my God, everything is so crazy. I'm just trying to keep it together. And he said, Susan, the world is just correcting itself, is what he said to me, and putting things back where they need to be. And I thought that was very profound. So this is a screen print on the arches, or BFK. And so this is Victor's work. I'm going to speak briefly about my work. These are the series of prints that I made in 2020. This was work I was working on, not knowing what would happen with it, but these were round papers. I'm obviously obsessed with the circle. I think I need to get out of the circle and someone's to start from the corner somewhere. But these are on handmade Kozo paper. They're monotype woodcut and yeah. And these are based on, the theme was the oculus. I was thinking about the Pantheon, the building, the oculus looking up through the ceiling into the heavens. And of course, I love pattern and decorative form and repetitive form. And these are Victorian and Greek images and all kinds of things blended into the body of the paper. And the blue oculus was just my metaphor for looking at the sky. I wasn't thinking of black and blue at that point. And the last series is Kind of Blue, which Jonpaul, I think we shared a similar musical. Miles Davis is one of the most soothing artists I like to listen to, but I explored the color blue. And I was talking to my sister growing up, you know, we never wore blue. And I was like, I never got into blue. And she said, you know, our mother didn't really like blue. She always wore black and beige and non-color, except for blue jeans. And I thought, that's pretty interesting. And when I started exploring with blue, these are screen prints, I was just wanting to make all different types of blues that would break out of the circle, the circling the square, circling the flower series, but negating the flower and moving into more pure form. And this is what emerged. And I find meditative, and going back to Keiko's comment about blue is not a sad color for me. I've been reading a lot about E. Klein lately and his idea of blue being the color of the universe and the heavens. Throughout art history, I think it's a noted description of blue. So these are meant to be rotated. They could hang in any configuration. The center one that has more of the definitive target looking circles has silvers and blues. And I just absolutely love printmaking. I absolutely love blend rolls. So it was black on black, blue on blue. Can I see a difference in deep blues and gray blues? And to me, at this time, this was very soothing. Right when COVID hit, I started these, and it was the idea of just finding a sacred space to be able to breathe like the air and rest, but also go into the darker places of life that we're facing and finding the beauty within all of the trauma and tragedy. Because I think art is healing, art is important, and art is everywhere. I mean, without it, we would have no definition of anything. And I go back to one artist who was in the Forward Press show, Richard Peterson, who did the digital drag queen ladies. He said, art's everywhere. Like if you go to the supermarket, you have to have a label to see what you're buying. I mean, without it, we would be lost. So this is this series. And so I think that is everything. I'm going to stop the share and turn it over to Nancy or Beverly. And thank you, artists, for speaking. I hope I wasn't rushing, but I wanted to stay on time. So.
Okay, Susan, thank you so much. This was terrific. I have to say, on behalf of the Print Club, I have never seen such stunning works from a large array of artists. And we thank you, Susan and Myrtis, for making it all possible. Really, every work was fabulous. And it really makes we've been members of my husband and I have been members of the Washington Print Club for at least 30 years. And it just shows that printmaking is very much alive and well, although it has been said in the past that it is not alive and well. It definitely is. And thank you so much. Both Susan and Myrtis, you have made my day. That's all I can say. So there are some questions. And I have to say too, a lot of comments, everybody saying how wonderful the work is, almost every artist has a comment about how beautiful their work is. But specific questions, I do have one who's asked, let me go back to Jun Lee, if she's here, I hope. Did you print blue or violet first? Is the violet a product of printing red over the blue or violet straight?
So hi Deb, and I started with the blue first. Actually, all the layers are their own ink layers. The violet, so the printing layer orders are like light blue and light violet and red, like more like a magenta, and then blue, and the key layer, the last layer, looks like it's like almost like a black, but it's mixed with the black and blue and violet. So if that would answer your question, that.
And Deb also asks, and I believe this is probably for Jermaine, what is the distinction between calling a work a fine art print versus calling it a photograph?
To answer that question, it's more of the process. You can see, you know, when people take pictures and you tend to print them out on photo paper or regular paper. But for this process, pigment prints, this is the best way to describe having a digital print, putting on fine art paper. Much like for this process, this was under the German etch fine art. So it gives out a nice, good quality for the composition to look at it physically, rather than looking at any other type of paper. Now the trick is trying to find the right paper for print, because not every digital image could simply work. You have to really go through, research and trying to go through a trial and error and find the exact right quality of paper to know that it can speak for itself once you see it. And that's always been a challenge, and it's always been a thrilling experience too, because once you find that right paper, then the results speak for itself.
Okay, this is for Preston, I believe. Do you print on wet or dry paper?
Unmute myself. Okay, yeah, I saw that question. So for the monotypes is dry paper. It is, because the actual the work is getting done with the paint on the plexiglass, so that it is dry. I'm pretty sure, right, Susan? Am I correct?
You can print wet or dry monotypes, but we use Arches 88, which is a beautiful paper to print dry for oil-based monotype.
Okay, and the etchings, of course, are that is wet. Especially the aqua tints, but but with the monotypes, like I said, it's really fun seeing what the lines do, on dry paper, and how, it really makes a lot of interesting marks, I think, with monotype unintended, which makes it even more spontaneous and immediate for, process with the monotypes, which is my favorite personally. Yes. Thank you.
And I have a question of Myrtis. I'm fascinated by your gallery. I am not familiar with it, I have to say, sorry to say. And I'd like to know, do you have a stable of artists that you deal with regularly? Is it mostly works on paper, or is it all media that you represent? And how did you get started in the gallery business? That's a lot of questions.
Yeah, I'll give you the brief answer to each one of those. Yes, I do have a stable of artists. Among them is Susan and Michael Gross. We represent 13 artists. the works that we represent through the gallery, through our program here, are of all medium. We do painting, sculpture, photography, video, prints. And so we're very fortunate to have a pool of artists who are multi-talented and create through multi-disciplines. And how I got started, I began my career, I have a background in business and marketing, and I began before the internet allowed in the way in which artists promote it these days. I began helping artists create professional portfolios, you know, writing proper artist statements, biographies, and just putting all that information together. And they would take that information and secure exhibitions. And so the word started to spread that I was representing artists. And Preston, you know Alva, so she's at the root of this. Alva being and so it began as a very part-time venture, working as a curator through other galleries before having my own. At the point that I realized that this was my passion, I enrolled at the Maryland Institute College of Art in the curatorial program. Back then it was called Exhibition Design Seminar. And I just took it on full force, discovered this beautiful building in Baltimore, which prior to that I was operating in Washington, DC for 2 years on Capitol Hill, and then discovered this building here in Baltimore and have been here ever since. So there we stand. Here we are.
Thank you for having a bricks and mortar gallery. It's wonderful.
It is.
There's far too few of them.
Yeah, it changed everything for us.
Are there any more questions? Does anyone unmute yourself?
I just wanted to make one comment in response to Deb Rosenblum about a fine art print photographer, limited edition pigment. And Lily Press is in the mix of moving into the digital world along with continuing traditional mediums. But Jermaine's photograph, he actually took the photograph himself. He and he works with developing the image in Photoshop. So the print that came out was not like straight from his camera, just like an artist in the olden days would go in the dark room and dodge and burn photographs like Weston and all those guys. This is what he's doing with his work. So these are original prints. They're not reproductions they're not giclées. They are original, created by the artist. And so there's manipulations with his approach to tone and value and lights and darks. So I just want to make that clear, that person that answered that question. My quest is to like banish labeling the mediums, if this is a photograph or a print, although we all fall into that, but it's a creative artwork and it's an original. So just to put that into the mix.
Thank you. We have one question again from Myrtis. How do you select artists for your gallery?
Well, a lot of that, the short list of criteria are that the artist has demonstrated that this is a professional career path for him or her, that, of course, what they create, the aesthetic, the storytelling, resonates with, who I am. I know a lot of it's driven by my own personal aesthetic and what I enjoy and what I think is important. I think the narrative is important, the artist's storytelling, the ability to execute with a level of professionalism and refinement in terms of the material use. And then, again, back to being very serious about it, just, being able to create a body of work that is really profound, again, in its storytelling. And it could be like one of the reasons I love Michael Gross's abstract work. So it doesn't necessarily have to be figurative, but Michael's ability to combine color, the rhythm that he creates, it really is for me like jazz. My father was a jazz musician. So in Michael's work, I see a syncopation. I see spontaneity. The lines that he creates are so incredibly beautiful. And so those are the qualities that I look for. Susan's work is definitely representative of that. So it's the quality in the work, the narrative, the beauty, the storytelling, all of those things. And it has to be compelling because there's so much that's beautiful in terms of what's created, but what's the compelling narrative? What are you saying through it? I think that is part of what draws me to an artist's work and what I think that my clients will get behind in terms of supporting it. Because, you know, again, there's so much rich talent out there that we don't have the capacity to take on everyone. So it's a real challenge we just have to have a level of discernment and look for those special qualities that, you know, then lead to a relationship with the artist. And with Susan, we have the privilege of having on our walls the works of artists that in many cases we're being newly introduced to. And because she is such an expert in her field, you know, there was no question about what the quality of work was going to be that she was bringing into this exhibition. It was like, Susan, whoever you select has the gold, you know, the gold stamp on it. So it's just whatever you want, the answer is yes. So because of her level of expertise and professionalism. So I feel very honored to be working in collaboration with Susan. She is a consummate professional and a master printmaker, and all of the artists that have worked with her to create work for this show just speaks to who she is as well.
Thank you. That's very nice. I'm going to sum up this program with Randy Rice McCormick's comment. Thanks so much for the wonderful presentation, and congratulations for the intriguing and accomplished prints. Thank you.
Just one more comment. Thank you for everything. The show has been extended through April, correct, Myrtis? I just make sure that people get to see it.
Yes, thank you for mentioning that. It's been extended to April 15th. And so we invite everyone to come in. I mean, Susan's PowerPoint was beautiful, but when you stand before the work, like the rooster, you know, I was looking at some, oh my God, the colors are so far much more rich than what we're experiencing on the screen. So, you know, if you're able, please come by and see the show. You will not be disappointed. It is well worth the trip. We're taking individuals' visits by appointment. We're social distancing. We're limiting it to 3 unless it's a party of family members, everyone that, you know, has this bond that, you know, they can come in and share. But we've been very busy while I've been sitting here. I've seen, you know, individuals flowing in and out. So the show is very popular and several artworks have sold. Thank you, Susan, and client Jonpaul, Renee, and then we have some things pending as well. So I think some other things may be sold today. So, but again, it speaks to the quality of what we're featuring in this beautiful show.
Thank you very much. So with that, I will say goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming.
Thank
you
you
for a wonderful
Bye.
presentation.
Thank you.
Bye.
You. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for everyone.
Yes,
Good.
thank you. Bye-bye.
Great to see everybody.
Yes.
Great to see you, Eve.
Thank you. Love you all.
Bye-bye,
Yeah.
Susan.
All right. Thanks, Myrtis.
Bye, Shelley.
Bye, Shelley. Bye, Keiko.
Bye, everyone. Have a good day.
Okay.
Take care.